Mic check 1 2. It's the Y2K Collector, and there is still plenty of interest in retro video games, even here at the end of 2025. But there are two things that have caused the hype to take a hit, and I want to talk about those two in this video, and then also share what I would be looking at or what I would probably be doing going into 2026. Now, the first reason, and probably the biggest reason that many of us already know about, is that collector demand has been satiated. If you are a collector of retro video games, you more than likely at this point have pretty much hit most, if not all, of your collecting goals. If you wanted to complete a Wii U set, you've done that. If you've wanted to build a PlayStation 2 collection, you've done that. 9 times out of 10, if there are certain holy grails that you've wanted to get your hands on, unless it's something like way beyond the realm of reality, like a $5,000 or $10,000 game, in most cases you have done that. And the reason being is because most collectors already know where to go for certain things, especially when it comes to grails. If you're a collector and you're looking for a very hard to find item, you're not going to go to GameStop, and you're 9 times out of 10, you're not going to expect to find it at a yard sale or a flea market or a thrift store. Most times, collectors know that if they want something really rare or extremely hard to find, they're going to have to go to either one of two places. The first place being a mom and pop shop, like a dedicated retro video game store that may or may not have that product, or when all else fails, they'll have to turn to eBay and eBay the item to their home. And for a lot of collectors who have been collecting over the last few years, if they have hit a point where they're just tired of the search, where the cost for searching for the game is starting to outweigh the actual price of the game, most collectors have just decided to bite the bullet and get the game off of eBay and complete whatever collection or get whatever game it is that they want. And so overall, the collector demand has just been met. It doesn't mean that collectors don't care. It just means that they've gotten what they want and now they're satisfied. And for anyone who was looking at the retro gaming market as some type of stock market thing that was going to keep going up, no, that's not the way the collector market works. There's a finite number of collectors and there's a finite number of retro games, and once that balance or that equilibrium has been reached, it pretty much stays that way unless there's another catastrophic pandemic level of event that causes collectors to start to, either mass sell or something of that nature, or unless something else happens that just dramatically drives that type of demand to the levels that we saw. I'm praying to God that we do not get another pandemic, because that would be horrible, right? But it would take something at that level to create the type of atmosphere that we saw for retro games. And so overall, collector hype has been satiated. On top of that, speculative collectors, speculative enthusiasts in the hobby have also migrated away. The grifters are gone. They've moved away. They're on to Pokemon and Labubus, and some of them have gone back to Jordans and sneakers. Some of them are, on all types of stuff. Some of them are on digital tokens, whatever it is, right? You have that group of people who are just constantly moving on to the next thing. And so because of that, the overall hype has taken a bit of a hit. And so the enthusiasm for it at I guess a mass, consumer level has just kind of dwindled. The second reason for why I think there has been a little bit of a downshift is because of current market conditions. There is a very there's like a nervous energy in the air everywhere when it comes to what the economy is going to look like in 2026. And no, this is not an economics channel. You've got Andre Jick and Graham Stephan and Meet Kevin and Clear Value Tax, and there's so many other big YouTubers who cover the economy. They cover the Fed. They cover what's happening in the job market and the labor market. And I'll let them get into the weeds and really break all of that down for you. But here on this channel, for the purposes of breaking down why people aren't spending as much on video games or retro games in general is because there is a overall spidey sense that's tingling in the minds of anyone who has major bills or responsibilities. And I think in general, people have a feeling that they might need to hang on to some of their extra coins because they don't know what's going to happen in 2026. They may lose their job. They may something, they may have a health issue that causes them to have to spend money on healthcare. There's a myriad of reasons as to why people might be a little bit more cost conscious. But the fact of the matter is that people are very cost conscious. In October alone, over 150,000 people were laid off. Just this month, the jobs report hasn't come out yet, but just this month, we've had at least another 50,000 people laid off. And when you look at all of 2025, over the last couple of years, there's probably been over 1 million people laid off. That's a lot of people being laid off. And and depending on what industry you're in, depending on what market you're in, depending on what it is that you do, um, you're probably thinking that it would be wise to hang on to your chips. Now, all that being put aside, you're also seeing, and again, this kind of gets into the investment side of things, and this is not an investment channel, but we're just speaking about this in the context of why I think the interest in retro games have waned a bit. You're starting to see a lot of people move into cash positions, right? So a lot of investors are selling stock, they're trying to build up cash positions. And then, if you go from the investor all the way down to the average Joe Schmo, you have a lot of people who are selling the stuff that they don't need. They're selling sneakers they don't need, clothes they don't need. They're kind of offloading a lot of stuff, and they're building up their cash reserves. They're building up their cash balance for what could come. And you never know what could come. Obviously, there's a lot of talk about, and I mentioned this on the channel, and again, that's not what this channel is about, but I think all these things do play a role in it. I know they play a role in it for me. As someone with responsibilities, as an adult with responsibilities, as a person who isn't independently wealthy, I have to be cost conscious and be mindful of the things that I do. Everything that I do has to have its own budget, from the vacations that we take, the anytime we go out to dinner. And that's just a smart way to be. Whether you have a lot of money or you don't, being mindful of how you spend your money is ultimately just a really smart way to be. And I think a lot of collectors are smart. People that are into video games, typically, a lot of us are smart. We're good not only at Super Metroid, but we're probably good at other things that require analytical thinking and reaction time and speed and stuff. There's a lot of skills that you pick up when you play video games that can be translated to the real world. And so I think a lot of people are relating those gaming skills and those spidey senses to what's happening in the real life video game called your life. And so I think all of these things are what's kind of impacting this. Now for me, what I think is I think moving forward, the best course of action for anyone who's still heavily collecting, in my opinion, would be to focus on the games and less on the consoles. And Y2K, why do you say that? I say that because there are a lot of third-party companies that are getting better and better and better at making these aftermarket or these third-party consoles that can play original hardware. I think Analog just came out with the Analog 3D. I'm not sure if that's what it's called, but it's a very cool looking N64, right? It looks like a very futuristic N64. It's a beautiful looking console, but I believe it's a modern console that can play original Nintendo 64 games, which I think is actually quite impressive, right? That they're doing this. And I think that you're going to have companies that will continue to make these consoles and devices that do have the ability to play original gaming hardware. And so for me, if you're a person who likes off the beaten path type of games, if you're a person who likes games that you don't really know if they'll ever really get a remaster in any type of way, then I would say focus on the games that fall within your niche, that don't have a remaster, that haven't been ported to any modern consoles, and concentrate on those games, because those are going to be the ones that you'll probably want to have. Now, who knows? If 5 to 10 years from now, and I've said this before, maybe everything will wind up on the Switch, right? Maybe every single game known to man will ultimately be ported over to the Switch. But until that day comes, you still have an opportunity to collect original hardware and build a library of games that you can access without having to worry about emulation or worrying about not being subscribed to any type of digital platform. And so I think that would be the route that I would go if I were to continue, heavily collecting into 2026. It's not to say that my collecting days are over. They are going to go on pause for a bit, but I would say that that might be a really good way to look at it. But you guys let me know what you think. What do you think are the cause for this? Again, this is not a video with me saying that no one cares about retro games anymore. Because again, I think that the enthusiasm is still there. I think there's still a market for it, and I still think people are buying, but the hype definitely has taken a hit. Let me know what you guys think about these thoughts, these concepts, and I'll catch you in the next one. It's the Y2K Collector. Take it easy.